Thank you so much, Tricia. And by the way, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. And I've really enjoyed the conference today. It's been really good. And everybody has set a very high standard for me to follow. And I will try not to let y'all down. So I appreciate it. So let me tell you a little bit about who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it. You already know about this. I'm not going to share with you these details about the gap that we have in the skilled labor shortage that we have, because you already know that, and you already know the problems that we have with regard to people getting into debt and then not being able to find jobs. And you're in the industry, you know about this, and so there's really not a lot of point in me going on about that, except we know that it's gotten bad and it's getting worse, and something needs to be done. You're probably familiar with this as well, if you're at a college here in Texas, and we did not know when we started this project that this was coming, but we're pretty happy about it actually, that they put in this marketable skills requirement into the 60 by 30 TX plan. And I think it's also really important that they said that the students need to be aware of the marketable skills that are embedded in their program, because they need to have confidence. We know that motivating students and keeping them motivated throughout the program is important, and I think it's important that they understand that there are marketable skills embedded in their program. And that they are going to graduate with marketable skills. I think that's important. So we're excited about that because that really fits into what we're doing. Tell you a little bit about TSTC, what you do know and what you don't know. Of course, we're a statewide technical college. We were a system of colleges. We've recently gone through the single accreditation process, which is lots of fun, needless to say. You get to spend a lot of time with SACs, and that's always great. And I felt a little bit bad because we'd just gotten finished with our campus reaccreditation, and it was like, hey, that was so much fun, let's have them back. So we did that. And but we've been through that now. We are a statewide entity. We're really interested in economic development through technical education, and that is, in fact, if you go and look at the statutes, we're under a different part of the education code than community colleges are, and it talks about economic development and technical education, which is what we do. The Center for Employability Outcomes is really about prosperity through skills alignment, and part of the reason that we're there is because I think as Rex Peebles was sharing with you earlier today, our funding formula changed, and we are now funded based on the change in earning capabilities from when students come in to the college and when they leave. And obviously that's an oversimplification of the formula, but it certainly focused our minds a whole lot on the idea of making certain that we were doing a good job of meeting the requirements of industry and marketable skills. And even before that, we'd actually started this project. First of all, there was 10 years of technology forecasting that went on, where TSTC was looking at what kinds of skills and jobs were coming down the road. And so these technology forecasts came out, and then that sort of changed into something called tech briefs, which were, shorter looks at some of the things that were coming down the road, and there's a list of some of those things that were done. At some point along the way, we realized that what we were looking at was sort of how do we match program with occupation, and that those occupations all had jobs, and all those jobs had skills. And then what we were trying to do was come up with awards that had the same skills that were obviously in the jobs. And we were trying to make sure that obviously the candidates who came out of those programs had the same skills. And since we were specifically workforce oriented, we thought to ourselves, well, why don't we actually start working at the skills level rather than working at the occupational level? And so we began looking at skills and how those things are defined in ways that they're not defined correctly, and how we could go about making a better job of it. And we realized if you take a look at some of the ways skills are defined, this is an example right here is from LinkedIn, that some of the things in someone's profile are skills, as they call them all skills. Some of them are actually tools that people work with when they actually use their skills. And some of them are other things that are somehow listed on a skills list. And you understand, of course, that whole definitional problem and how we use language and is really at the base of that whole thing we were talking about earlier today about, well, what about the learning outcomes, and how do Are they measurable? Are we doing a good job of writing those things? So, which is something we've dealt with all the time we've been in education, right? So as we looked at that, we ran across some things we thought might help us. One of them was something that came out of the Texas Workforce Commission called the Detailed Work Activities Common Language Project. This white paper is still available out there, by the way, if you'd like to look it up. It's sort of the theoretical basis that we started with. And really all they really said was, we need a common language for discussing skills. And the common language they suggested was the detailed work activity from ONET. Because it's a consistent structure for skills. It's a known domain in ONET. You can apply it to multiple occupations. A little bit broader than a task, but many times one learning outcome will actually will be equivalent to a number of different detailed work activities. And of course, it has a nice consistent structure that we can count on, right? So you know you're going to have an action verb. Oh look, okay, shows up on that screen, doesn't show up down here. We're good. And so you're going to have this object modifier, and you're going to have these statement modifiers. So you're going to have a structure that you recognize and that has the right kind of structure. Now, having said that, we still realize that even though ONET was good in the fact that it defined a really great structure, that they also sometimes fell short in actually following that structure well and making certain that they weren't repeating themselves, making certain that they used the same language over and over again. And we'll talk a little bit about how that came about. So one of the things that the Texas Workforce Commission did is they went out with a bunch of different companies and a bunch of different employers, and they said, hey, help us make these things better. And they did. They came back and did some changing to the library and came up with a specific Texas skills library that was specific, had specifically been looked at and had been verified by these companies. So we have continued that process, and part of it is that we've looked at a lot of curriculum. The other part of it is that we have spent a lot of time working on machine language processing for this kind of material and taking text in and seeing what kind of results we get. And one of the things we realized that because a lot of different people have worked on this library of detailed work activities, is that you have inconsistencies in that as well. So you have inconsistencies in the use of plurals. You have inconsistency in the use of words that all mean customer, basically, but a lot of different words are being used. And computers hate that, and it makes it very difficult to actually go through the process of trying to match those things up. And I'll show you why that's important. So what we did was we took the theory of applying this in the field by looking at curriculum and trying to match them up with detailed work activities and doing sort of a skills translation where we were saying, do these learning outcomes are they equivalent to these? And if they are, and you're trying to teach somebody this particular occupation, do the detailed work activities that we're finding in your curriculum, do they match up to the occupational profile? And if they don't, are the things that you left out important? Or are they not important? Those are, once again, decisions we can't make, but it is information that the faculty could take back and talk with their advisors and say, this is something we think is important, this is something we don't think is important, this is something maybe we spent too much time on. It gave people a very different look at their curriculum than they've ever had before. So we did that at our school in 2012. All of it was done on a bunch of spreadsheets. It was really messy, but it was a part of the learning process of making this happen. We came back in 2013 and did some more and involved our college partners down at Temple College that we were working on a teaching site with at the time, so they were natural partners for us. We went ahead with the help from the Higher Education Coordinating Board and some grants, have gone out and done some other schools, and each of one of these right here represents one of the awards that we did. And we continue to do that with our own programs, which we mostly paid for ourselves. And also, we did it with some out-of-state entities that had contracted with us to help them out as well as they looked at their curriculum. And over time, we got better and better at it. And we learned a lot about what worked and what didn't work. And in 2015, we had another grant that we went and did some more work. And we started really looking at, because all of this is, it understands, and although it was web-based, involved an IO psychologist in the middle of it doing a lot of the analysis, somebody who was very familiar with the library and could do a lot of the work and could come back and explain a lot of the work that they had done to the faculty after it was finished. But in the end, we had really looked at 26 college, 83 awards, 1,300 courses, and we think about a 53% rate of, wow, I need to change my curriculum. I need to update some things. I can see some things that I might be able to take action on overall over all those years. Now, some people saw that, so well, that's not very good. I thought if you've actually gotten half of the people to actually change something based on data at the college, you've really done a really super job. So don't be disappointed by that, because sometimes it's difficult to get people to do that. But I think overall there was a real great response to what we did, and a lot of positive response to being able to have some help in looking at the curriculum in a different way. And this is just sort of a process overview. You can see that through the uploading, one of the biggest issues we had was data cleaning and making sure that because we were going to get a really good matchup based on sort of cleaning up the data that we got in. Part of that was some of those problems with learning outcomes. Part of it was the fact that the learning outcomes repeated themselves so many times through the different courses, and part of it was the use of jargon in some of the learning outcomes, that sort of thing. Went through the skills translation process, did some gap analysis. We allowed them to do some curriculum updates. We worked on industry validation. We really wanted them to discuss this with the industry advisory groups and take a look at that, and then do some curriculum fine tuning. We really wanted this to be a continuous process, but I tell you, it wasn't going to be a continuous process the way we were going, because it was too arduous. How many of you have been involved in a THECB process? Anybody been involved in a THECB? Okay, you know, the designing curriculum thing out of Ohio State, where you bring in people and you put a bunch of cards on the wall, and, and you know, once again, that's another arduous process, which is the reason why people have a tendency to not do it real often, because it is arduous. And we didn't want our process to be arduous. We want to make it possible for people to do this as continuously as possible. This is an example of some of the results that we were getting back from the work that we were doing. And this is actually the accounting, two-year accounting program out of McLennan Community College, our friends across the river there in Waco. And it's across the Bosque, not across the Brazos, in case you, okay, we won't go into that. Anyway, so this was a really good example. For instance, one of the great things about this process is once you've done the skills translation, you don't just have to look at one occupation like you do with a THECB. You can look at multiple occupations. You can measure the accounting program against auto mechanics if you want to. You're probably not going to get a lot of good information out of it, but I'm just telling you. So, for instance, one of the things that she discovered as she looked through this was that a certain part of her program matched pretty well with tax preparers, that she hadn't really considered tax preparers as being something that she might do. Another thing that bothers people really badly are these big yellow lines here that indicate, frankly, things that they are teaching that are not in the occupational profile. Those are enabling objectives, okay? Those are things that people have to know to be able to do the things that they're going to do that actually have value in the marketplace. So you may say, I want my students to be able to test electronic equipment with a digital multimeter. Great. That may be something they could be paid for. Are they going to be paid for knowing what a volt is? No, probably not. Are they going to be paid for knowing what an ohm is? No, probably not. Are they going to be able to be paid for reciting Ohm's law? No. But it's really an important part of knowing how to use a digital multimeter to test electronic equipment. And so a lot of that stuff is stuff that's preparatory to learning. Then you have the things that are in the occupational profile and being taught, and then you have some things that are missing from the occupational profile. So her particular occupation that she was looking at was bookkeeping, accounting, and auditing clerks. And so we took a look at that and pulled that out and let her look at that in a lot of different ways. So for instance, we looked at where the actual high-value job skills were being taught in each of her classes. We got an opportunity to look at, by occupation, which of those things were being taught in each of their classes, and also which things might be missing. Now, for instance, in this particular case, one of the things that we did not find in there was calculate monetary exchanges. I have absolutely no idea whether it's important for an accounting clerk in McLennan County to be able to calculate monetary exchanges or not, or whether that's something they need to learn in school. I have no idea. But I figure the faculty member probably does know whether it's important or not, and certainly her industry advisory committee could say, yeah, you really need to be teaching that, or no, you don't need to be teaching that. The point is, it might not have been identified any other way if we hadn't brought it up. She was teaching them to maintain travel expense accounts. It just wasn't reflected in the materials we received. So once again, those are just ways of looking at curriculum. Perhaps they haven't looked at it before, and actually finding some decision support materials within there. We took a look at that from the, this is actually from a computer certificate here. And what we did was we asked an advisory committee to rate each of these things that we identified in the program for frequency and criticality. And then we've played around with this. We haven't come up with the correct answer to this yet. Essentially what we did was we took the frequency and looked at how often it appeared in the program and tried to see if we could find any sort of correlation there. But of course, as you know, that's actually a lot more complex than a simple correlation is going to bring you. So we haven't actually found up all the answers to that as of yet, but we want responses back from the advisors about whether these things are important and how important they are as well. So we did some, in 2014, we did a specific survey of all the participants, and we found out that pretty much everybody used this in some way. And in that particular case, in 2014, about half of them actually used it for informing a curriculum change. We wanted them to use it for documentation as well for changes that they sent to administrators. We did some interviews in 2015. Rather than doing the survey, we wanted to get some sort of qualitative information from them, and we got some really nice quotes back from folks who really found it to be helpful to them to look at their data, the data the way we shared it with them. Donna Wishon from TSTC. I had a really unique experience. I had been visiting industry advisory committees for a long time as an administrator, and you know what that means. That means you're the person they have to listen to before they get to the stuff they really want to get to, right? The first time ever when I went and talked about the results that we had gotten back showing what was being taught, what needed to be taught, I got treated like a rock star for the first time in an industry advisory committee meeting. It was a lot of fun, so I really enjoyed that. We had some other folks, Steve Davis from Grayson, who really felt like we had done a good job in several of his programs helping him meet the needs. Then Annette Begum from the accounting program there at McLennan Community College as well. So we really appreciated what they had to say, and I really felt like, once again, that we got some really great feedback. All of that was really about, does what we're doing here work? Is it providing value to people? Can they actually take this and use it to make decisions with? And we really felt like we had validated we could do that. Now, I am not telling you that we have validated that we've improved employability, because it's going to take a longitudinal study that's going to be a lot bigger than what we've done so far. But I think when we scale up, we're going to be able to do those kinds of studies. So we did find out that the concept is great. They liked it. There was a great fresh look at the curriculum. We also discovered, however, that they needed more guidance, and we had thrown a lot of data at them that was really hard for them to sift through. Some people were more comfortable with that than others. They really wanted more, especially effectiveness and communication for advisors. And I really appreciated that because, you know, we heard today about a great advisory committee and how that advisory committee made a big difference. I have been to a lot of advisory committee meetings, and I can tell you that there are some incredible advisory committees and some wonderful faculty who are really great at dealing with advisors. I've been to some really miserable advisory committee meetings as well. And so our interest is in trying to maintain the quality of advisory contact and try to get as much value from that advisory contact as we possibly can. And by the way, make the faculty who are in those departments look like rock stars to their advisors. And I can guarantee you that's a product I can sell. So we went from there and we made some decisions about what we wanted to do and where we were going to go. And one of the things we decided was that we needed to use computational linguistics and machine learning. And one of the first things that the computational linguistics folks came back and told us is that there's a lot of inconsistencies in this language that needs to be fixed. We thought it was great. We thought we were fine. We have made many improvements to the library since then. As a matter of fact, some of the first improvements were made to the library. The Department of Labor sort of did the same thing when they updated the ONET library not too long ago. So we felt like that was validation. We were on the right track with some of the changes we made. You understand that although we're using the ONET model, the problem with ONET is that they don't update often enough because they are interested in longitudinal data. And of course, if you split one technician job into three different technician jobs, it really messes the way your data looks, and you have to write lots and lots and lots of explanatory notes that nobody reads. And so so we're trying to make certain that we stay up to date and that we actually make the data more useful and that we find new things as they come out. We wanted an application programming interface. We had written a lot of code, but we realized that we needed to actually separate that out so we could do this kind of computation and look at text as it came in to discover what skills were in the text, but not just output it to one program, but multiple programs that we might write in the future. We realized that we needed some addition of some tools and technologies, and that's what we're working on right now. Tools, technologies, and tasks to really get down to a very detailed level is something we're trying to add right now. Also, by the way, we're working on right now is some of the military MOSs and MOCs to try to add as well. Some ongoing work in that area. We realized that we needed commercially experienced programmers. People who work for public institutions sometimes are used to making interfaces that work really great for public institutions, but not necessarily. Let's put it this way: we needed people who were experienced in making software that people were willing to pay for. And so, not that they had to use because they worked there. And so we've gone out and hired some commercially experienced programmers. We're working on an agile development program that we think is going to get us there through an iterative process a little faster. And then we wanted rapid improvement of a new Align app that we're working on to actually do all of this processing we were talking about, but without the I/O psychologist being in the middle of the process. It's a little bit of a glazed look now. I know it's after lunch. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Anybody want to interrupt me, by the way, anytime?
So is the state doing also another, something similar to this with the marketable skills?
Well, we think that maybe we have a solution that might help the state, and we have certainly gotten some funding from the state. But I think that this is at least part of the answer to identifying the marketable skills, because we know we can identify marketable skills pretty well in workforce education programs. Moving on and identifying those marketable skills within academic programs is going to take a little bit more time, but we really believe we can get there. Okay. Good question, thank you. So what we did was we created this thing called SkillsEngine. And essentially we just take unstructured text, it goes to SkillsEngine. The API sends back stuff about the occupations it matches with, the work activities, the skills, the knowledge, what we refer to as workplace essentials, which is soft skills. This is something unique that we've created. And knowledge, skills, and abilities that come out of ONET. And then that information can be fed into any application that anybody builds. So it can be something that's designed to match applicants to jobs. It can be something that's designed to match, it could, from the prior learning assessment, it might actually take somebody's resume or some other information they give you when they come into school and say, hey, here's some areas where you may want to look at that might be right for prior learning assessment that you need to be thinking about. So that's what that does, and I'll show you some examples of that because we have a thing out there online called Profile Builder. It's a free tool. Please go out and use it. It's a lot of fun to play with. It really is. And essentially, it shows you how that text works. And it's a couple of generations behind as far as our engine is concerned. But it does a pretty good job of showing some things that you can do. I'm going to give you an example right here. This is actually curriculum analysis example. We usually use resumes or job postings, but because this is about curriculum in here, right? So let's talk about that. This is a diesel equipment technician associate degree. This is nothing but the course titles and learning outcomes. No other information is going into this, so it is what it is. And so all that information is going to be copied. Simple copy. Kind of paste it into the SkillsEngine Profile Builder, that tool I was telling you about. It's just a demonstration tool, and then it says create a profile. And it goes out and creates a profile showing the occupations that it matches with, the best as it can according to sort of a percentage. It's going to show you some information in here about the workforce out there based on the fact that we chose Texas when we started. It's going to show you the work activities that match. These are all listed here by general work activities. But you can also get the detailed work activities once again in rank order from the highest score to the lowest score. And then you can go down below the work activities, and you're going to see the workplace essentials. You see that attention to detail, work ethic, and critical thinking are all an important part. And that's based, by the way, not on the occupation, but on the skills that it finds. So that's really important. So even if you have a new occupation, you can still get that profile. And this is the knowledge, skills, and abilities, which you'll find in ONET, which is not going to surprise you that knowledge in mechanical is very important when you're a diesel equipment mechanic. Critical thinking, once again, the skills, some of these sort of match up pretty closely to the workplace essentials. Manual dexterity and abilities is very important, once again, not a big surprise. But it gives you an idea of what the profile builder does and how that works. And once again, you can go out to SkillsEngine.com and try the profile builder. And as a matter of fact, I think, yeah, okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. Let me show you another example of the workplace essentials here. Ooh, I'm going to run out of time.
Like 12 minutes.
Sorry, I only got 47 more slides. We should be fine. Anyway, but this shows you that essentially if you take the workplace essentials and you look at a CEO, you see that leadership, oral communication, decision-making, written communication, critical thinking, those kinds of things. If you take that and change that to, this is a tableau, by the way, but it does exactly the same as our other stuff does. Carpenters, wow, attention to detail crowds everything else out. That's not right. Measure twice, cut once. There you go. If you go over at there and you decide to make that nutritionist and dietitians, you find oral communication is the most important thing. Now, my daughter is a nutritionist, and she spends all day long talking to people about the nutrition. So I guess that probably makes sense. It turned out I didn't realize that she had actually chosen the right career for her, but she has because she's a real talker. So that turned out that shows me that she chose the right path for herself. Anyway, that's out at SkillsEngine.com. And there's lots of things to try out there, lots of cool things. I don't have time to go into all of it, but we'll move. 20 minutes, okay. Well, that's okay, because we're about to get into the really important stuff here. Currently in development, we have our Align application. I would like to show you more of Align. What I'm going to be able to show you is some mock-ups of screenshots at the present time. I can tell you that we had our bi-weekly get-together yesterday with the programmers, and they are heavily into the interface development at this point. There's been a lot of back-end stuff. As it turns out, it's really hard to make this stuff work, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. This is the core of the problem we're trying to solve. Because remember that in our previous process, the IO psychologist went in and did the skills matching, which means that somebody who was really well trained in both the library and in reading this language was able to go in and say, okay, well, first of all, let's clean up all this mess. Let's find that what actually are real skill statements in here, and then let's match that up to things that we know will match up, and make sure we find where the gaps are. Well, we got to do that with a machine now. We don't have our IO psychologist sitting in the middle of this now. So what I'm going to show you is one of our internal tools that actually goes out and finds skill statements and then matches up to detailed work activities. It's not perfect yet, but that's why we need machine learning, because the more data we throw at it, the better it's going to get, right? Let me show you how that works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something I did at my house, which was that I took I went out and I found Introduction to C++ Programming from one of our courses at TSTC, and I copied it and I pasted it in. Once again, it's the Learning Outcomes, course description, course name. Nothing other special there. And I submitted that to our internal tool. And what it's doing is coming out and trying to find some skills out of the statements that it finds. And then it's coming over here and trying to find out what matches and what might not match to those things. Now, what that allows us to do is get to the point where a faculty member can run this program and hopefully have a very short list of things to choose from and going, yes, we teach that, no, we don't teach that. That's crazy, where'd that come from? Throw that away, right? That's how we're gonna learn as we move through this process. So we know that write computer code is pretty good. Analyze design and engineering problems, lots of things in here look good. Communicate with the public on environmental issues. That is a clunker right there, that doesn't belong there, okay? We're getting better as we move along. But the fact that we can get from that to here to these things up here is a major, major jump forward in what we're able to do. That is the basis of what we're trying to accomplish with this new program, which is the ability to go out, put in your course information, which is what this screen is for here, go in and do some matching up between the things that it finds and the things that it doesn't find. Take a look at how close you are to your target occupation, run some gap analysis, find where the gaps are, get a really good, nice report that you can format and print out for your advisors, get some advisor feedback. I want advisor feedback built into this. It would be optimum for me, from my standpoint, for most of the work of deciding what changes need to be made to the curriculum to be made before the advisory committee meeting happens. Why is that? Because if you've done that and you've already agreed on that, you ratify that at the advisory committee meeting, you show them your very impressive report, they go, gosh, you're smart, thank you very much. And then you do what? You bring in students to demonstrate how cool they are and the great things they can do. You tell them about the equipment that you need them to donate for you to be able to continue to do the really cool things you're doing. And so you really use that as an opportunity. And then you say, oh, and by the way, here's resumes from our folks that are graduating this semester. Hire them, right? So you really want to use that. It's great. You need the help for their help to validate your curriculum. But an advisory group is so much more than just somebody who says, yes, your curriculum is good, right? Gives you a chance to build that up. So, as we talked about, and as we questioned about earlier, this goal charges 2- and 4-year public institutions in Texas with documenting, updating, and communicating the skills students acquire in their programs. I really feel like we're on the right track for making that happen. I think this, once again, I think it has a PLA aspect to it, that you can actually use this. Because remember, the whole point of that is the shared skills language. Once you translate any document into that shared skills language, you can run a diff on anything. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. What I'm saying is you go from not being able to compare these two things at all to actually being able to compare two things that were completely dissimilar and figure out whether they have some places that match and some places that don't match. But to do that, you've got to be able to translate your text into that shared skills language. We have got a ton of stuff going on, but I really think that this is going to be a really good opportunity for Texas institutions, hopefully in the future, to take this application, and you're supposed to continuously update. Well, why not have a program that helps you do that? Why not have a program that helps you communicate to your students what those things are and what jobs they match up to, and that you could get jobs doing as well, so as you go through that. So I think it's going to be a really good match. Tell you a little bit, a couple of things that people that we're working with right now. So one of the things one of the things we've tried to do is we have to find some way to fund all this, right? Our chancellor's been very nice. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board has given us some grants, which have been helpful, but frankly, we're spending a whole lot more money than that. So we have gone out and gotten a couple of people that we're willing to pay to access the application programming interface. One of them is Louisiana Job Connection. And what they're doing is they're using this to match up applicants to jobs, right? So they have some job postings, they have some applicants, they say what matches, what doesn't. They tell us that when they started using our stuff, that their job matches got much better. So we're excited about that. And they're ready to re-up for a second year, so we're excited about that too. Another one is a company right here in Austin, Veteran Insider, at veteraninsider.com, by the way. And Veteran Insider is also using the API, our SkillsEngine API, to help match up veterans. And he has got some really great things going. He is a super guy. He's a veteran himself. He is doing a tremendous job, and he's now pulling in a lot of information from LinkedIn on a lot of veterans, and he's really building a great database of what kinds of veterans match up to what kinds of jobs and what jobs they've been successful in. So this is really exciting to us, and working with him has been a lot of fun as well. So you can see that there's some real commercial potential here, but I don't come from the commercial side of things. I come from the academic side of things, and I'm excited about what we can do for Texas institutions. So I'm really have time to answer questions now, I think, right? So I did rush through a few things, and I'm sorry if maybe I didn't get hit enough of the theory early on, but I do ask for your ideas and your questions and any discussions you have. The things that I would leave you with that I would like for you to do, interested in knowing when we launch this application, leave me your card. I'll be happy to let you know that. Take my card, email me, that's fine. I'm good with that too. You can, I invite you to go out to SkillsEngine.com and try out the tools and take a look at what we're doing. Play around with the profile builder. It's a lot of fun to play around with, and it's cool looking. I know for a fact that the workforce development guys are just down the hallway from me at TSTC, and they're using the profile builder right now to build nice looking little reports they can take out to the companies that are interested in having training done, saying this is the kinds of things your folks should know how to do.
So I'm going to wrestle how this is this part of TSTC?
Okay, well, so C4EO is like any other center. It is completely a part of TSTC, absolutely. And we have some support from the TSTC Foundation, but we are a wholly owned group from TSTC. That is correct.
SkillsEngine is a result of.
SkillsEngine is part of C4EO, something that was created under C4EO, and there's not an external entity that we've contracted with to doing that. We've done all this work ourselves, essentially.
And the skills that are in the industry profiles,
Yes.
those came from.
Okay, so the skills that are in the industry profiles, okay, the profiles themselves by and large come out of ONET, okay. The skills that are in the industry profiles are a mixture of straight, pure ONET detail work activities and detail work activities that have been, that are associated in many cases with an ONET detail work activity, but have been cleaned up a little bit and worked on and massaged by us. That is an ongoing process. Right now, we are working on another update to the library, and the purpose of the update to the library is to make the matches better and to make them work better. That's what we're doing. Once again, because we think as a theory and as a start, we think that the shared skills language process is great. We think the ONET model is great. We love the way that it's structured and think that it has a lot of capabilities. But there are some things that happen within that, the creation of the detail work activities that we think can be cleaned up and be better. There's an indication that if you actually look at that closely, which we've been forced to do, that in some cases maybe they've sort of gone and got some graduate students and done the same thing over and over again and some things like that. So we've really tried to make that, improve that, because getting the very best results possible from our software is really what we're looking for, and we want to be sure that it makes sense to people when it comes out. So we have mostly, it's either ONET detail work activities or it's ONET detail work activities that have been cleaned up. And of course we have to tag all that and keep it all up to date in the database and be certain we know what the changes are. Because one of the other things that happens, it's happening, and one of the reasons why we're a little late getting some of the things we wanted to get done on the on our Align program is that when you start talking, when a few of us get together and start talking about what we would like our program to do, it sounds really simple. And then we get down and we sit down with the programmers and they go, oh, well, you want to track changes? Yeah. Well, we'll have to assign globally unique identifiers to everything in the database, and then we're going to have to, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that was more complex than I thought, wasn't it? And so, that's taken a little bit longer than we expected, because some of the things we wanted were just harder than it sounded like when we first mentioned it. They've gotten there, but it's taken a little longer than we expected. But we think it's important that if some of the skills change, that we inform you when you come back into the program, hey, some of these skills have changed, or even send you an email saying, hey, the profile for the occupation you're aimed at has changed, or some of the skills within that occupation have changed and we've been updated. We've added something to that. You probably ought to go back and take a look. So we think it's important to be able to track those changes, and we want you to be able to track your changes over time too. This is what my program used to look like. This is what my program looks like now. Our intention, by the way, for this launch. Like everything else, what we want to do is we want to provide you a program that as a faculty member you can use and just go in and use for your program without any problems. Needless to say, because once again we have to keep things moving, we eventually want to add some things to it that if you want to buy, you can. But we want you to be able to go in and do free, take a look at a program and keep up with it yourself if you want to.
I'm trying to figure out if this would be one way to kind of come up with competencies.
Yes. Now we're about to do that. As a matter of fact, I have the current student learning people from TSTC knocking on my door every few days saying, "Are we ready yet?" Because that is in fact what they plan on doing. We have a competency-based education process, and we also have approval from DOE, DOE approval for that, so that we can get student aid and those kinds of things. And we've been to SACS and been through that process with them. And we have some CBE programs, but there's a real feeling that we need to go back and take a look at those competencies and then work with these competencies again as we create. So a lot of the things we have right now in CBE are very task-based, and we'd sort of like to organize that. I've looked at a lot of CBE stuff, including from some really big institutions that I can't talk about because I'm under NDA. But looking at what people are doing, we want to be sure that we have it really well organized, and where it can roll up and we can really see what we're doing, and that we're making sure that we're teaching the right things and that we're phrasing it in the right way so that it is truly something good and it's measurable and it matches up exactly what we say we're teaching people to do. So yes, absolutely, we believe it is certainly a way to do that. And we're so certain of it, we're going to test it on ourselves. So there you go.
So can I go into here and pull up an occupation and say whether the skills in that?
Yeah, if you want to do that, you have to have a certain number of words in Profile Builder.
Okay.
But you can do that in ONET. But you can go into our tool and type in welder, and just pop it right on up if you want to. But yeah, you sure can, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so this was built specifically for connecting workforce courses to the skills required by employers.
Yes.
But knowing that many comprehensive institutions are also going to want to use this as an application for academic courses
Right.
and programs, have you thought about, or is it somewhere in the future to be able to map these things not just to the workforce skills but to Texas core objectives, or to reverse engineer it down to dual credit courses so that you can see if they're meeting the TECs and
Yes.
college requirements?
Yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the people we worked with early on in this actually had used this process to analyze the work activities that could be found within St. Paul's letters. So so it has a wide application. I think that there's still work to be done to decide. We're obviously very interested in looking at the way licensure and certifications and other things match. I think that TECs is an interesting area. There's probably going to be some data cleanup challenges involved in that.
What's another whole language?
Yeah, exactly. I think that part of that has to do with one of the difficulties in machine learning and in language processing is the training process. And we have obviously trained this specifically on a lot of material we've received from workforce education programs. Now, you run into overfit problems, and we've run into that repeatedly, in that it gives us back exactly what we expected because that's what we gave it, which is not good because that means sometimes it's giving you answers that are wrong. And so, one of the things I'm excited about expanding this is that we're going to be getting a lot more data in. And as we get that data in, we're going to be able to improve our responses. And we're going to be, and subject matter experts all over the place are going to be looking at that in real time saying, that matches, that doesn't, that's stupid, throw that away. That kind of matches, but not, it's not what I was looking for. So we're going to have a lot of data that comes back that helps us with that. I think that those other things are certainly possible, but it's a matter of time and resources, I guess. I think the same thing's true of, by the way, of the academic programs. I think it's possible, and I think it's really important that we do that, considering the higher education plan. And I think, by the way, it's possible we can do it well before 2030. And once again, I mean, you know as well as I do that if somebody takes an academic course, they are likely getting real job skills in that course. Not always necessarily, but there's a real likelihood they're getting good job skills in that course. The question is, how do we show that? How do we validate that? How do we count that? And how do we do that in a way that isn't, completely run in such a way that we're kind of doing it for ourselves rather than getting help and some sort of validation? And I think that's one way we can do that is through this system. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. And any other questions, complaints, emotional outbursts? Good. It's probably after lunch on Friday afternoon. That is not going to get us any emotional outbursts other than let's get out of here, all right? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really enjoy talking about this stuff, and I appreciate you listening. And if you want to leave me your card, or if you have any questions for me, or you want my card, let me know. All right. Thank you.
And we'll be giving you the sign-in sheet, so you'll have it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks.
Please give Ron a hand.
Thank you.